Good afternoon, dear passengers. This is your captain speaking. Welcome to the flight we've all been waiting for. This is day one of Cebu Pacific flying again. The cabin crew and I are delighted to be able to fly you to your families again, to bring you home, to help you take care of your businesses and go back to your jobs, to make new memories with old friends and new. Bring you back to experiences you have missed. In a few minutes, you can look out your window to the beautiful destinations waiting for you to enjoy it once more. In the meantime, sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of the flight. We're so happy to be serving you once again. Let's work together so everyone will fly again.
That truly is the promise. Everyone will fly again. Magandang araw po sa ating lahat. May buntag kaniyong tanan. Good day to everyone. My name is Jude. I'll be your host and your guide for today as we restart Philippine tourism with Cebu Pacific Air. We are joined today by over 200, almost 200 participants from our Philippine-based media. National tourism boards are joining us today. Travel and trade associations, Department of Tourism and the Tourism Promotions Board, banks and payment center partners, and our product partners. Magandang araw po sa ating lahat. We'd like to start off by asking a very simple question. Which Philippine destination are you wanting to fly to right now? We're doing a poll and it will flash out now in your screens. We just want you to answer. Do you want to go to Aklan in Boracay, to Bohol, Cagayan de Oro, Cebu, Clark? These are the opened safely destinations for leisure travel. Davao, General Santos City, Manila, Palawan, and Siargao. We want to see where you want to fly. That's on your screen right now. You can just click your answer, and we're excited to find out where you want to go safely with Cebu Pacific Air. Now, why are we here today? We are restarting Philippine tourism safely with Cebu Pacific Air. If you're like me, spending 250 days in quarantine, the great news is that we're only 16 days to Christmas, and this is the country, after all, that celebrates the longest holiday season. You might be doing it in our top answers are in our poll. You answered Boracay and Bohol. In fact, I'm actually wearing Bohol in my ears. These are from Dawis. These are handmade filigree earrings. You might want to buy one of these when you fly to Bohol for leisure travel, as it is safely open. We in the travel industry continue to work hard for all of our Filipino travelers, of course, from reopening more destinations safely for leisure travel, which is what we're discussing today, providing more flight options and flexible bookings. It's very important. Reopening of safe and comfortable rooms for everyone's stays, and providing exciting but also safe tour experiences. Now, as the year comes to a close, we are all excited to set the tone for the continuous recovery of the Philippines next year with everyone. After all, we're celebrating in a very volatile year. What does the Filipino do? We bring back the spirit of modern Bayanihan. So this is Bayanihan 20.20 as we restart Philippine travel by paving the way for everyone to rediscover traveling once more. Now, Cebu Pacific flies to more domestic and international destinations, and it continues to work with local stakeholders like yourself. And we've heard of the hashtag Everyone Will Fly Again. That was the promise that we made earlier. To encourage us to move to this promise and fulfilling it, let's hear from the chief pilot of Cebu Pacific himself, our president and CEO, Mr. Lance Gokongwei.
Maayong buntag. Good morning to our partners in the travel and tourism industry and friends in the media. I hope you and your families are safe and well during these times. 2019 seems so long ago when the Philippine tourism industry experienced one of its best years. We collectively achieved and surpassed the 2019 DOT target with an all-time high of 8.2 million international tourist arrivals, which contributed 12.7% to the national GDP, a growth of 20.8% compared to the previous year. The 2019 successes would have set the momentum for a greater and more successful 2020 for the entire tourism industry, if not for the pandemic that has left the world at a standstill. However, the strong motivation to bounce back for the economy is still there, as one airline job supports 24 jobs in the travel and tourism value chain industry. From protecting and consolidating our current position, we will now focus on creating and pursuing growth opportunities with our stakeholders. We need to create a longer runway for the Philippine tourism industry so we can continue providing sources of livelihood, supporting the economic development of towns and cities, and providing safe, affordable, and accessible air transport services for everyone. This pandemic certainly has taught us a lot of valuable lessons, not just in business, but about life in general. But certainly, what has stood out are the generous and heroic acts of everyone in the industry to be steadfast and learn to thrive and survive in our current situation, showcasing our grit and reliance as people. All I know is that basta sama-sama at tulong-tulong tayo, kakayanin natin to. And so, as SEB gradually expands its network in coordination with the local government, the goal in mind is to serve our customers and make flying in the new normal safe, convenient, and affordable. This commitment has become more achievable because of partners like you. It will definitely be a tough road ahead, but we take heart that we will be able to conquer 2021 better. Let us ignite the travel spirit and encourage personal responsibility so we can safely and sustainably restart travel so everyone can fly again. Thank you and a pleasant day to everyone.
Daghang salamat, Lance, and that's quite a number to consider. One airline job actually supports 25 others in the tourism chain. And we know that you have a list of questions for our panel. We also know that our viewers have a lot of questions for them as well. Please type them in the Q&A box in our Zoom link, and we'll ask them for you if we still have time after our panel discussion, or share them to the panelists directly if they were not taken up in the panel discussion, so they can refer to you if needed. Joining us also today, who will discuss how Cebu Pacific is boosting travel confidence in the coming months. Please welcome Vice President for Marketing and Customer Experience of Cebu Pacific Air, Candice Iyog.
Hi, Jude. Good morning, everyone. Hello. Thank you for joining us today for our year-end stakeholder event. We'd also like to say a special thank you to Secretary Romulo Puyat, represented here today by Undersecretary Bong Bengzon, and the rest of the DOT for working towards the recovery of domestic tourism. One of the things that was clearly illustrated by this pandemic was how our industry is so interdependent, and that if we want to confidently restart tourism, we will have to work together even more. And with that, I mean the DOT, airlines, airports, the LGUs, and most especially our passengers, because we all need to ensure that everyone follows the new protocols in the new operating environment. Now, before 2020 comes to an end, let me briefly share with you how our year started, so we have a little context. So in this slide, you'll see that 2020 started strong. We were coming off the back of a stellar 2019 for Cebu Pacific. We took delivery of our first A321neo, which was going to usher in the next stage of expansion for Cebu Pacific. We launched Philippine routes such as Cebu Coron, Manila Marinduque, Clark Palawan, continuing to increase the connectivity between various Philippine islands. We launched international routes such as Manila Shenzhen and Clark Tokyo, and we were operating flights to 37 Philippine destinations and 26 international destinations. We flew 22.5 million passengers in 2019. It was also a great year for Philippine tourism, with 8.2 million international tourist arrivals and a growth rate of 21% year-on-year. I think it's the previous slide. Yeah, there you go. Contributing to 12.7% in the national GDP. So while this is history now, it's a good reminder because it is a testament to our capabilities. So in the next slide, you'll see the silver lining in all of this. That despite the lockdown, we were able to operate cargo and repatriation flights. We restarted commercial operations in June, and we're now increasing our flights and will be operating close to 16% of our pre-COVID network this December, because we believe that we are ready. Because there are 3 things that need to be in place in order to kickstart travel. If we can move to the next slide, please. And according to Simply Flying, the 3 things that need to be in place for us to start confidently traveling again are: first is sanitation and safety that is enhanced to address the needs of our current operating environment. The second one is around having a single track and trace app. And third is testing, not quarantine. Now, over the past few months, we as an industry have been working hard to ensure that we have all these things in place for Cebu Pacific. We are happy to share that we have received a 7-star rating, a perfect score for COVID compliance. This is from airlineratings.com, an independent body that reviews various airline processes and rates them according to a standard set of rules. Now, on the next slide, I'm sure you've heard this before, but it's important that we emphasize this so our customers can travel with peace of mind. Our Cebu Pacific aircraft are equipped with hospital-grade HEPA filters that refresh the air in the cabin every 3 minutes. Now, aside from this, on the next slide, we understand that our customers want to be informed on what the new processes are and also want flexible options in case someone from the traveling party gets sick or requirements change. So Cebu Pacific was first in implementing new policies and procedures, and we're doing our best to listen more to our customers so that we can continue to adapt to their needs. We have accelerated our digital transformation to enable contactless flights and have using new service features for our customers so we can reduce the person-to-person contact through the entire customer journey with Cebu Pacific. It is also important, in the next slide please, it's also important that we continue to communicate with our customers and inform them of what these new processes are through our contactless flights so that everyone comes prepared and are able to play their part in ensuring a safe air travel experience for everyone. In the next slide, you'll see here that in order to make all of this information easily accessible for our customers, we've created a page on our website where you will find all the information you need in order to travel again and to travel with a peace of mind. So here you'll see a short video of navigating through our website. Now, from our homepage, you can click on the banner on the left-hand side of the screen and it'll take you to the page where you'll find our latest schedule, which is updated daily. Then there is a link or a button on the top that takes you to our contactless flight guidelines, where we'll have reminders such as checking in online and other requirements for ease of travel. And the one I personally find most useful is the link to the travel document requirements. Here you'll find the different requirements for international and domestic flights and per LGU. This is also updated regularly. Our flexible options, and then there is a link to our testing partners, which I will talk about a little bit more later in the presentation. And lastly, a page for our frequently asked questions. So all of this under the first point in traveling with confidence, which is under safety and sanitation and safety. The second point, and the second requirement for a confident restart to travel is having a unified contact tracing app. Now with the DOTR's launch of a national QR code-based app that makes contact tracing for our industry more seamless, all passengers are now required to register through this Trace app before they travel. Ideally, before they go to the terminal. All right. Now, last but not the least is testing. Just last December 3, Cebu Pacific piloted Test Before Boarding, or TBB, with General Santos and Philippine Airport Diagnostic Lab, or PADL, our diagnostic partner. This is a milestone for us because we believe that this can be an option now for LGUs who are currently requiring testing prior to entry to their respective LGUs. We will be shouldering, or Cebu Pacific will be shouldering the cost, Cebu Pacific will be shouldering the cost of the antigen test during this pilot, which will be running from December 3 to December 14. The premise for TBB is that the test is administered on the day of departure, so we can reduce the risk of infection between the time the test is taken to the time the passenger boards the flight. The testing facility, for this to work, the testing facility has to be in the terminal. So for us, for TBB, the testing facility is conveniently located in Terminal 3, NAIA Terminal 3 at the departure level as well. Now, passengers traveling to Gensan are required to check in online and complete the electronic passenger information form before going to the airport. And only passengers with a negative antigen test result will be allowed to board the flight. Now, aside from our TBB pilot, in the next slide, we've also partnered with 3 diagnostic partners where we have special rates for RT-PCR testing. The test will cost 3,300 pesos. This special rate is exclusive to Cebu Pacific passengers, and results are released within 24 hours. Ceb passengers just have to book this on the Cebu Pacific website in the link that I showed you earlier, and you can access it on that page and pre-book your testing as well and schedule it there. So we've covered the 3 points to kickstart travel. We've checked the 3 boxes, and we are ready to fly again and show one love for the Philippines. Now, in the next slide, you'll see that why tourism is important. Tourism is important because it creates jobs. In fact, based on very, very fresh information released by the IATA communications team just a few hours ago, based on December 8th data, one aviation job actually creates 29 tourism jobs. We want to come together as an industry because we know that tourism is a major contributor to the Philippine economy. And so, One Love is Cebu Pacific's campaign that is in partnership with the Department of Tourism. Could we move to the next slide, please? Where we are making 1 million seats available for sale over the Burr months, because now, more than ever, everyone's flight matters. And today, we are announcing our 12-12 seat sale, which will run from December 10 to 12, with a travel period from August to November 2021. All right, so that ends my update for you this morning. We know how hard everyone in our industry is working in order to recover from this pandemic. So thank you so much for your time and your attention, and we look forward to when everyone will fly again. Back to you, Jude.
Thank you very much, Candice, and congratulations on the 7-star rating for COVID compliance from airlineratings.com, and so many things to consider. Thank you for boosting our confidence in traveling end of the year as well as going forward to 2021. You will be joined again later on for a panel discussion with USEC Bong Bengzon Jr. and Chief Executive Advisor for GMCAC, Sir Andrew Harrison. But in the meantime, we are very honored to have a very special, inspiring message from none other than the Secretary of the Department of Tourism. Please welcome Bernadette Romulo Puyat.
Good day. On behalf of the Department of Tourism, I would like to express my appreciation to Cebu Pacific for bringing together the stakeholders of the travel and tourism industries, banking and financial services sector, our friends from the media, and many more at today's Restarting Philippine Tourism with Cebu Pacific online forum. After what can only be described as a difficult 2020, we are catching glimpses of the light at the end of the tunnel. It bodes well for everyone, especially now that we are on the cusp of another and hopefully more positive year. After many months of careful planning and coordinating with various local government units and stakeholders around the country, some destinations were able to safely and responsibly reopen to tourists in the last quarter of 2020. Among this initial batch of reopened destinations are Boracay, El Nido, Baguio, Ilocos Sur, Ilocos Norte, Lapu-Lapu City in Cebu, and most recently, Coron and Siargao. Most are in the pipeline, and we can expect to add to this list in the coming weeks, thereby keeping our momentum going strong as we bring on 2021. Aside from having more destinations reopening to local tourists in the coming year, we look forward to the creation of travel bubbles with nearby countries. Like many of you, we welcome the news that at least 3 vaccines have shown remarkable signs of promise. The Department of Tourism supports the suggestion of Mr. Lance Gokongwei to come up with a global COVID-19 passport to facilitate international cross-border travel with stringent health and safety measures in place. The DOT recognizes that a COVID-19 passport is vital to reviving international travel as it will restore the trust and confidence of people to travel to other countries once more while assuring receiving countries that their inbound tourists are vaccinated. But until then, international travel will most likely be restricted to select zones between countries that have little to no cases of infection. Because we have no control over external factors affecting the COVID situation worldwide, we have focused our recovery efforts on restarting domestic tourism and creating safe travel zones within our own country. We are also cognizant of the changing preferences and needs of tourists brought about by the pandemic. We've responded by recalibrating our existing tourism products and developing new ones, identifying 7 key tourism products to focus on. These are nature-based, cultural, farm, education, sun and beach, health and wellness, and dive and marine sports. These tourism products will be aligned with the enhanced health and safety protocols and our mandate to promote sustainable development and inclusive growth. Let me take this opportunity to remind everyone that despite the progress we've made in the latter part of 2020, we are not out of the woods. We must remain vigilant, sticking to recommended health and safety protocols that enabled us to lower our contagion rate to manageable levels. While the vaccine has yet to be approved in this country, let's continue to keep it at bay by practicing physical distancing, maintaining good hygiene, and wearing our masks and face shields when outside our homes. It's still more fun as long as we ensure that destinations and activities are made safe. The guidelines and measures in place, as stringent as it may be, are here to protect travelers, tourists, and local communities while sustaining the momentum of tourism recovery. In our latest campaign, Have a Safe Trip, Pinas, we showed what the new normal of traveling is like as we coexist with the virus. that we can experience special moments and create magical memories while observing health and safety protocols. It is because of all these factors that I've mentioned that I am looking forward to a better 2021. I would like to thank the Department of Tourism's partners, stakeholders, and all those involved in the travel and tourism industry for your steadfast cooperation and support over the last several months. We couldn't have accomplished much on our road to recovery without you. My thanks and gratitude once again to Cebu Pacific for this opportunity to contribute to this forum. Your dedication to enhanced hygiene and safety measures in your planes and in your operations is commendable. I also appreciate your information materials that assure Filipinos of how flying can be safe amidst the pandemic. Because of these efforts, you have greatly contributed to slowly building people's trust and confidence back to travel once again. Together, let's continue to rebuild the country's travel and tourism sector, turning it once more into a significant contributor to the nation's economy and development, a provider of decent and sustainable livelihoods, and a source of pride to all Filipinos. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay.
Salamat, Secretary Berna, and thank you for reminding us we can only do this if we do it together, which is why we encourage everyone to spread one love today. Allow me to introduce you to our panelists today as we go straight into our live discussion. We start off with Undersecretary for Tourism Development of the Department of Tourism. Please welcome Benito Bong Bengzon Jr. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jude. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for joining us. We're also joined by Chief Executive Advisor for GMCAC, Andrew Harrison. Maayong buntag, Andrew.
Thank you very much for having me here. Maayong buntag, everybody.
Maayong buntag. And finally, Cebu Pacific Air's Vice President for Marketing and Customer Experience, Candice Iyog. Good morning, Candice.
Good morning once again, and good morning to my co-panelists. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Earlier when we started, we threw a question to the audience asking them which destinations they were itching to fly to when they are reopened. And the top answers, I think, were Boracay and Bohol. I want to ask our panelists today, based on the data that you've gathered from your different industries, which destinations are people excited to go to? I'd like to start off with USEC Bong. What does the DOT data have telling us now? Where do people want to travel?
Well, we had a survey sometime in May of this year to measure the travel sentiments of Filipinos. And in that survey, the top 3 destinations that came out were Boracay, Siargao, and Baguio. But we will refresh the survey because so many things have happened since May. And by this month, we will be doing a follow-up survey that will again ask the respondents to indicate their preferences as we relax the guidelines and open up more destinations domestically.
What does the airport data tell us all, Andrew?
Well, we haven't done a survey as DOT has done, and we would rely on the DOT survey. But what I can tell you is that our 24-hour hotline airport number generally is swamped with callers asking about conditions or requirements to travel to various destinations all over the country. And it's very clear that there is a demand for travel. Some of these calls come from people within the Philippines, some of them come from people outside of the Philippines, but not necessarily tourists, mostly Filipinos trying to understand how they can travel. So I would say that there is a pent-up demand for travel to various parts of the country. Some are visiting friends and relatives, some are traveling for business, and there are some who just want to get away and go somewhere different, maybe a sandy beach, maybe cooler climate, maybe do some diving somewhere. So people want to travel. And today, whilst we recognize the efforts of the government to balance public health with economic resurgence, it's also very important that we understand that the economy is on its knees. And you take a look at a country like Thailand, where tourism numbers are over 35 million a year. It's interesting to note that in the Philippines, there are more jobs dependent on tourism than in Thailand, despite the significant number of tourists that Thailand has well over the Philippines. And whilst I appreciate the data of IATA as in 29 jobs, that's probably formal. But we have to consider the informal economy also in the Philippines, where so many different people play a role. You know, you get to a tourism spot and there's a guy there who marshals your car into the parking space and collects 10 pesos from you. Guess what? That guy is employed through the tourism ecosystem as well. But they're probably not in IATA statistics. So it's really a big challenge for us. And the other side of this, I'll just conclude very quickly, is that let's not forget that all the LGUs and central government relies on businesses generating profits to pay various forms of taxation to the coffers, so national coffers. So it's also very important that we work to re-energize the economy. And for an island nation, travel by air is absolutely crucial to maintain social mobility.
And I agree that the real data should be one airline job is equivalent to north of 29. I'm pretty sure it's even more than 29. How about airline data? Where do people want to fly, or where are actually people flying to, Candice?
Yeah, I think, Jude, based on our searches on the website, what we've seen, especially in the last few weeks, leading towards the Christmas holidays and the peak, we've seen people searching the top destinations they're searching for domestic would be Caticlan or Boracay, Siargao. There's also Cebu, Puerto Princesa or Busuanga, Coron. So people are definitely looking forward to getting some sun, sea, and sand. And there is really pent up travel demand, especially for leisure. And so, as Andrew was talking about this earlier, how important it is, not only for our sanity and for people who want to get out of their homes, there is really a big impact also to the economy. And so the sooner we can move this forward, the better for everyone.
Thank you very much, Candice. The next question I want to throw to you, Sec Wong, and also to Andrew. What is the new normal like in flying? How's the experience like? Can you share with us how is it traveling in the new normal? Sec Wong.
Well, I haven't really traveled much under the current situation, but I was listening very intently to the presentation of Candice earlier, and I was very happy to know that Cebu Pacific has introduced all these safety protocols to ensure to borrow the words of Lance, to ensure the convenient, safe and affordable travel of Filipinos. And I think I'd like to relate it to the survey that we conducted in May of this year, because high on the list of the things that the new travelers will be looking at would be the health and safety guidelines that will be provided across the different subsectors of tourism, of course, including the aviation industry. And as we all know, Philippine tourism, both international and domestic, is heavily dependent on air connectivity. So we welcome the good news that Cebu Pacific has taken the lead in making sure that all the protocols are in place, so that, again, we will recover, we will travel again soon enough. On the part of the DOT, the instruction of Secretary Puyat is to continue to assist our partners, particularly the airlines, to help them restart. And for what we're doing also is that we continue to maintain a higher awareness level on our domestic destinations. And this we do through the recently launched campaign that we have that will encourage more domestic travel in the next several months.
I do know that Andrew himself has traveled. Maybe you'd like to share with us your flight experience in the new normal. You have traveled, right?
Yes, I have. Well, I haven't traveled internationally since the 5th of February, and I've traveled domestically about 5 times now. I guess, Jude, you referred to something, you used the term VUCA, the volatility and uncertainty of the world we live in today. And the only thing that is a guarantee that it's known today is the level of uncertainty that the future holds for us. And so one of the methodologies to help balance that is to give messages to try to assure passengers about the level of safety for the entire journey of their travel. That starts with the messaging we saw from Cebu Pacific about how the aircraft are prepared for safety, how assured passengers can be that the environment in which they sit and travel on the aircraft and through Cebu Pacific's facilities are safe as can possibly be using current practices. Also the 7-star rating. Equally for the airport, we are in the process of acquiring our Airports Council International Airport Health Accreditation, which measures the elements of safety that are provided for passengers through their travel experience in the airport. At the same time, we've introduced many innovative features, such as, for example, now we don't have somebody scanning you for your temperature physically as you enter the terminal. This is an iconic cam that projects your temperature on a screen. We reduce their masks, you scan your QR code, and that emulates the kiosk on your handphone. So you do all of the check-in with the kiosk using your handphone. You don't need to touch the kiosk. Even when you go through the automated security gates to go to the departure area, you used to have to present your barcode to a screen on your boarding pass. Now you can actually do this a few centimeters away. So again, reducing the opportunities for contact. We had a very fruitful meeting with the team from Cebu Pacific, looking at whether, for example, we can try to work on a concept of a single token that allows the passenger to travel through the airport virtually with the least amount of contact and having certainty in terms of their identity and who they are. And so I'm very excited that the changes in terms of the new normal give us new opportunities to improve the travel experience and focus on enhanced safety. Because one thing is certain, whilst we're dealing with the coronavirus as a pandemic, this may not be the last type of health emergency that affects us on a global scale. So all the things that we can do to prepare us for whatever comes next will only help ensure that the impact is not as damaging and is not as far-reaching as we've experienced with this pandemic.
That's a great point, because we're looking forward. It's not just for COVID-19. Whatever comes our way, we'll be prepared for that as well with safety measures.
Yes.
Thank you for walking us through that. Very specifically, this one's also for you, Andrew. How are we at the airport working actively to put in more flight options to and from Cebu? What are we actively doing to do that?
So I've got a great team of people, including Ines and Ravi Shankar and the team, who work very hard to go out and highlight what is possible in terms of the restrictions in place. Where are there opportunities for us to still be able to exercise travel? Where are the opportunities for us to collaborate with the LGUs? And I'm delighted that the Lapu-Lapu LGU and the administration of the Chan team has actually opened up to tourism and allowed people to travel to Cebu, albeit with the requirement of having an RT-PCR test. And the same applies for Cebu City as well. Having said that, we've done a lot of work in collaboration with Cebu Pacific and the Department of Health to see whether we can switch to an environment of antigen testing, which gives faster results and is more affordable. And Candice touched on this in the presentation for testing before boarding. So we are also working with service providers to see how we can incorporate that as a standard process. If we can do this, we can give assurance to the various LGUs that the level of safety for travel is more assured than it is without any form of testing. But I must stress one point, very interestingly. We are the only country in the world that requires some form of testing for domestic travel. Now, whilst I'm not saying this as a point of criticality, I'm just highlighting that our challenge is enormous compared to other countries. Today, our level of domestic travel is less than 20% compared to our neighbors in the Asia Pacific region, who are well above 55 and in some cases 77% for domestic travel. In other words, we don't need to wait for a vaccine for people to wish to travel. People will travel. If we can prepare and have adequate controls in place, tracing passengers, for example, through the new Trace app, that way we can give greater certainty that people can travel safely. And I hope that we switch from RT-PCR as a requirement to antigen, and eventually we will be assured with the levels of safety and protocols in place such that we can also do away with antigen testing and be like other countries that don't require any form of testing for travel. again, I understand fully, and it is very important to maintain the health and safety of the public environment. But at the same time, we need to balance that against the economic resurgence for the entire nation.
Cebu Pacific was the very first one to fly domestically in June of this year, and we called it Day One. From that day, Day One, all the way into today, which is almost the middle of December, I'm pretty sure that all of you have observed how certain behavior from the customers and travelers have changed. I want to ask each and every one of you, based on your industry, which one of these behaviors have you seen change, and how do you think the travel industry has to adapt to these new changes? I want to ask maybe GMCAC Bong first. In terms of the DOT, what have we observed that has changed in terms of travel behavior?
Well, let me focus first on the preferred activities. Clearly, we're seeing greater preference for outdoor activities. Candice mentioned earlier about the sun sand experience. People want to go to the beach. There are a lot of inquiries now on trekking, mountaineering. We partnered with a private group for motorismo, motorbike tourism. So in general, there will be greater preference for outdoor kinds of activities, the low density but high value kind of experience. But I also want to focus on the responsibilities of the travelers. What we're seeing now is that there is greater appreciation of the need to comply with the health and safety protocols. But to my mind, there's still a need for us to, how do I put this very diplomatically, to show more discipline, to be more cooperative, and also to be more patient as we go through these protocols. Because the successful restart of our tourism in general and the reopening of tourism destinations in particular will depend to a large extent on the cooperation of everyone. We've seen reports in the last couple of days of some infractions in some destinations, and we're really hoping that the traveler under the new normal or under the new operating environment will take all these things into account. Certainly the travel journey will not be similar to what we had pre-COVID. So this will require, like I said, discipline, cooperation, and patience among, not only the travelers, but also the service providers.
How about from the airport? What have you observed, Andrew, has changed in terms of the behavior in travel in response to COVID-19?
Yes, I think that people are certainly more aware. I think the various educational campaigns have played a big part. Also, people have understood that if they don't comply, then the restrictions only increase. And so people, for example, are very, very diligent in wearing their face masks and face shields for travel by air when coming to the airport. We also see a lot less people coming to meet passengers on arrival or bid farewell to people. So there's been a big drop in meeters and greeters and well-wishers seeing people off. And we've also seen that within the airport environment, people are arriving much earlier to ensure that they can meet all the documentary checks that are undertaken prior to departure to their destination. So people are showing up earlier, people are more aware, they're more conscious, but I also echo the sentiments of Secretary Bengzon, that we need to ensure that we remain compliant and diligent, because there are some thoughts that people believe that after a while you don't need to do all these things. No, we need to keep doing these things so that we can keep ensuring that we remain safe and it becomes easier for people to travel.
Thank you very much. Candice, what is the travel behavior that has changed, and how has the operations of Cebu Pacific adjusted to this? I do know, taking off from what Andrew said, that people have to come to the airport earlier. In fact, with TBB, right. Correct me if I'm wrong, with the test before boarding, you have to be there 5 hours before the flight. Yes, that's something that should be new to the Filipino traveler.
I think that's very specific. You're right, Juno, but that's very specific to GenSan and for TBB. And the reason for that is because it is a pilot, it's a test, it's a proof of concept essentially. Now, of course, we want to make that more convenient over time, and let's see what the outcome of the test is, and we'll learn from it and we can see where we can improve on that further. But I think going back to the point on what behaviors we've seen during this pandemic, I think one of the, if I can say, positive outcomes, if I can be so brave to say that there is a positive outcome in all of this, is that COVID has provided us with a us and the industry in general with a burning platform for change, for a burning platform to drive digital adoption. We've seen a lot of our customers easily move to self-service, whether it is for the rebooking of their flights, for the checking in online, for choosing to store their credit in a travel fund, etc. So it is not just for our customers, but even for Cebu Pacific. We are finding that we are prioritizing a lot of the initiatives that we've mapped out for maybe a 2-year, 3-year roadmap all into 12 months, because we do understand that aside from the burning platform, contactless is also safety. So that's one. I think the second one is really this unprecedented environment that we operate in, still operate in today, is also I guess enabling an unprecedented level of collaboration and cooperation across different stakeholders. And that's not just with our regulators and the airport partners, but also with our customers. And it will be very important that we continue to do the same if we want to restart. No? One of the most important stakeholders in this industry is our passengers, obviously. And so we need to make sure that, and we're seeing it, no, that all of our customers are wearing masks, wearing shields. We get asked whether we have the same experience as in other countries where you have passengers showing up and not having masks and fighting with airports or airlines. Luckily, we're quite, I don't know with your experience, Andrew, but I think we're quite good. We have good passengers when it comes to ensuring everyone's safety, and very cooperative. So we want to see more of the same, actually, because we need to work together here, not just for the individual passenger safety, but everybody else.
I like that you pointed that out, that we can only do this if we do it together. We truly are a multi-sectoral gathering today. There's almost 200 stakeholders joining us, which brings me straight to my next question. What are the stakeholder initiatives or factors that still need to happen? We're gathered here today so that we can let that come out as well from the airport, from DOT, as well as from Cebu Pacific. For local tourism to recover or even to accelerate in 2021? What needs to be in place? What do you think, Andrew?
So let me, of course, start by saying we take our cue always from Department of Tourism, but we also have to recognize that MCIA is an airport serving a tourism-driven economy. So therefore, our reliance on tourism is very important. So when we talk about domestic tourism, we also must understand that it involves international passengers. There are many passengers who arrive at a point of entry in the Philippines and take a domestic flight to their eventual tourism destination. So local tourism is actually a combination of the two. For now, our priority needs to be, as Secretary mentioned, to focus on domestic, pure, as in originating from within the Philippines, because of the various controls and measures in place that prevent international travel. I think for me, one point that we need to start investing in today, on the basis that international tourism plays a big part, is that we need to recognize that all of our competitors are going to do things very differently to what they did before. The competitive landscape is going to be entirely different. Nobody is going to rely on what they used to do before to attract tourists. And so our competition is going to become more intense. And I think we have to support the Department of Tourism in helping to meet that challenge for international travelers. For local tourism, we need to do a great deal to promote, to make it more efficient. We need to think of factors such as ease of connectivity. It's not just about arriving at the airport, it's about how do you go from the airport to your destination? Is it safe? Can it be rubber stamped as having met certain evaluation criteria for safety, such as your transport to your resort or hotel or to your tourism destination? So these are some of the things that we need to work with stakeholders to try and arrive. And one of the thoughts we had in mind is perhaps if we could create some type of approval seal that is endorsed by a cross group of key regulatory bodies, such as Department of Tourism, Department of Transportation, Department of Health. Could there be one type of stamp or seal to say that this particular vehicle or fleet of vehicles that transports you, this particular resort, this particular tourism destination has been given this seal of approval? We need to do that whether it's an international tourist or a domestic tourist. So I think these are some of the stakeholder challenges that we must collaborate on. And as Candice says, we now have a far greater opportunity for collaboration. So this is the time for us to do that. And I'm delighted that Cebu Pacific chose to have this webinar because this is a form of very important collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. On behalf of DOT, you said, well, what are stakeholder factors need to be in place for us to accelerate tourism in 2021? We're really looking towards the acceleration of it as well.
Well, for the DOT, within the immediate term, we've broken it down basically into three parts. The first is to continue to provide a lifeline to various tourism establishments that have really struggled over the last 9 months. And fortunately, there is a fund now under the Bayanihan 2, which provides working capital loans to accredited tourism enterprises. The terms are very attractive, very low, and I strongly encourage our partners from the private sector to take a look at this particular loan facility, which is being administered by the Small Business Corporation of the Department of Trade and Industry. The second one pertains to health and safety protocols. And again, over the last 4 to 5 months, we've been crafting different health and safety guidelines for the various subsectors of tourism. And I'd like to relate it to what Andrew was just saying a while back about the need for some kind of a seal of good housekeeping by the World Travel and Tourism Council, the WTTC. It has given the Philippines a safe travel stamp, and the next step is for us to identify partners from the private sector who have likewise complied and met the requirements of the WTTC and will therefore be entitled to the safe travel stamp. The third one really pertains to bringing back the confidence to travel. And again, it is really initiatives such as what Cebu Pacific is introducing that will really help restore the confidence of the travelers as we usher in 2021. For sure, there will still be a focus on domestic travel, but we look forward to the reopening of our borders to international traffic because we would obviously want to see international traffic restored so that we can make tourism regain its rightful place as a major contributor to the development of the economy.
Thank you very much, Yusek Juan. Finally, Candice, what needs to be in place for tourism to be accelerated in 2021?
Many small pieces. I think. But
I love the sign between.
There is a lot that needs to still happen. We're very, as Secretary Berna mentioned earlier, we're not yet out of the woods, but we do have the things in place. We're talking more, we're cooperating, we're working harder than ever. I think one of the things that would make it, move a little bit faster is having a simplified and a standardized set of requirements for domestic travel. As it is today, there's a lot that our passengers have to think about before traveling. And we do want to build the trust and confidence for people to start traveling. And so if we can make it easier for people by making it simpler for them so that they can start moving around, then I think that would be the first thing. We have other things in place. And not to say that there won't be new things that will come up now. I think what's important is that we work closely together and are quick enough to respond to the operating environment.
Thank you very much. We have one final question from our audience at Zoom, but don't forget and don't fret if your answer hasn't been read out today. We will direct them to our panelists and they can refer to you directly with their answers to your questions. This one is from Zarlene Chua from Business World. Have you reevaluated this is for everyone, have you reevaluated your tourism industry recovery forecast for the Philippines? Or will the country's difficulty in acquiring vaccines be detrimental to the recovery goals for 2021? And specifically for USEC, Bong, we also have questions about a COVID-19 passport. Maybe you could also include that in answering this question. So we'll start with USEC, Bong.
Well, let me answer the first question. The short answer is yes. We are reviewing our targets under the National Tourism Development Plan of 2016 to 2022, particularly focusing on the deliverables for 21 and 22. For the COVID-19 passport, is it, Jude? What's the question?
Is DOT already discussing with airlines the proposed COVID-19 passport for implementation? What will it look like? What information will it contain? Are you already discussing this?
There have been initial discussions, and even IATA has a proposal, and we're looking at the different options. But I think what is clear is we would want travel to be, of course, safer. We want it to be more convenient, and we will explore all possible ways of making it easier for the traveling public to move around. On the matter of vaccine, let me just segue, because in May of this year, out of the 13,000 respondents in the survey, 60% said that they will travel even without the vaccine. Now that there are talks of vaccines in different parts of the world, I think we can expect a higher percentage level of Filipinos to travel in the next few months. So I think that's a piece of good news that we as an industry should look forward to, and of course, more so in the case of the airlines and the airport authorities.
That's another passport I look forward to getting stamped. Andrew, what is the country's difficulty in acquiring vaccines, detrimental in the recovery for 2021?
I don't believe so, because as I mentioned earlier on, if you look at Thailand, they're already at 77% of pre-pandemic demand for domestic travel. You look at even other countries, Vietnam, for example, Malaysia, they're all over 50%. And that's without a vaccination. So I don't think that will be detrimental. There is also another thing to consider, which is what WHO describes as vaccine hesitancy. When the vaccine comes out, you may not necessarily go and rush to go and get that vaccine. Everybody wants to wait for the next person to get it to see what happens to them. So there is a lag time of around 3 to 4 months. Having said that, we believe that it's not something that's critical. It will be of value to some people, but it's not a key criteria to ensure the resurgence of travel. And I think what Candice mentioned, particularly for domestic travel, is the most critical key to unlocking it, which is to have a unified system that's simpler and easier for people to understand in terms of access to various destinations. Because as I mentioned earlier, our hotline is swamped with people calling us to ask us what are the various requirements. And so clearly people find it complex and they're not sure how to access this information so readily.
I think in the UK just today, the very first vaccine administered outside of tests was administered by a Filipino nurse. And I have a friend who was asked, will you get the vaccine once it's out? And her answer was quite interesting. She says, I'll get it after the Queen gets it. Until the Queen gets it. How about from Candice? How is this affecting the recovery forecast for Cebu Pacific?
I think, yes, the short answer to that is yes. We've had to reforecast our projections. It's no secret we are in a process of recapitalizing. And so part of that requires us to also reforecast the recovery. I think, agree very much with what Andrew was saying. I think while everyone is really hoping for the vaccine, I think we cannot afford to wait for the vaccine to get here before we start again, confidently flying again and restarting because of the impact of travel and tourism to the economy. And so it's really finding the right balance based on the information we have, based on the technology, based on what we have in place today, so that we can slowly start calibrating and moving closer towards where our peers are, where they are at above 50% already. We have quite a ways to go. So, and I think part of it is really, that's why the three things are important. No? Sanitation, so we've done that, check the box on that, which is part of safety. We're doing more testing now, and we have options for testing. But again, to Andrew's point, we're the only country in the region that has testing for domestic travel. So, but yeah, we understand. So because it is a need today, let's see how we can provide it in a more scalable and affordable way. So we check that box. We have a track and trace app, right? So we're able to track and trace should there be somebody who gets caught with COVID during while they were traveling. So we have those boxes ticked. So we now need to take it to the next step now. And fares will have to be affordable. And so we'll continue to stimulate travel and encourage people to move around again. But part of that then requires having simpler and standardized set of requirements.
I'd like to say daghang salamat for this top-tier discussion from all of you. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people who are joining us, our stakeholders, have learned a lot. If you have any questions that were not addressed, we will be giving them to our panelists to answer, and then we'll revert to you as well directly. So daghang salamat once again to GMCAC's Andrew Harrison. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Mabuhay ang Pilipinas. And the person who should be saying that is from DOT. Thank you so much. You said Bong Bengzon Jr. Andrew put the pressure on you. How do you recover from his Mabuhay ang Pilipinas?
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to join this very interesting discussion. Thank you, everyone, and mabuhay.
Salamat. And of course, from Cebu Pacific Air, Candice Iyog.
Yes, so once again, as Secretary Berna said in her remarks earlier, we're starting to see the light at the end of this very long tunnel.
Yeah.
And we're starting to travel again. And we're all, on this panel, we're all very hopeful and very optimistic. And while there's still a lot that needs to happen and we're not yet out of the woods, what's great, what's coming out of this is that we're all working together. We're listening harder, and we're working harder as well. And so we're confident that we'll be able to come out of this better and stronger, so everyone will fly again.
I love that we're really synchronized, because I was about to end with that, with Secretary Berna saying that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and we can only do that if we do it together. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to all of our stakeholders. Daghang salamat kaninyong tanan. So just to quickly wrap up as we go and enjoy our lunch today, we have put in place our 3-step approach: sanitation, there's tracing, and there's testing. Tracing and testing instead of quarantining, which turns off a lot of people. When you travel to a destination, you have to quarantine for 14 days. So we're introducing that TBB, waiting for the result of that, so that it will be testing instead of quarantine. And please, we suggest to everyone, and we invite you to spread the one love so everyone can fly again. Thank you. Daghang salamat, everyone. My name is Jude Bacalso. Have a fun day today as we look forward to restarting Philippine tourism this year and onwards to 2021.